Wendell, and welcome to tonight's edition of the Regional News. We start with some news in the island of Trinidad and Tobago, where pupils preparing for the secondary entrance assessment examination will do their work at home from today, Thursday, until August 20, and bars and restaurants are now the biggest COVID-19 risk. Prime Minister Dr. Keith Rowley yesterday announced the developments as COVID-19 cases rose by 5 to 199. And he's made a special appeal to the police for enforcement of the law regarding bars and restaurants. Rowley said what Trinidad and Tobago did in the beginning of the pandemic was still serving the country well, and the virus wasn't raging out of control. He said the contacts of the recent cases have been found, others were being traced, and he did not want panic reactions. He said some things have increased risk in the monitoring schools. After the secondary entrance assessment students went out to classes, it has been noted 9 children had the virus, including 4 from the examination group and 5 others. Dr. Rowley also said there would be no change on the planned reopening of schools in the first week of September, but admitted they will be opened with some element of risk management. And still in Trinidad and Tobago, BP, the parent company of BP Trinidad and Tobago, has announced major changes in its global business that have major implications for Trinidad and Tobago. The company has said it is not going to explore for hydrocarbons in any new jurisdiction. It will, in other words, not look for oil or gas anywhere that it does not already operate. The company, in a significant statement of intent, also indicated that its plan by 2030 to reduce its output of oil and gas by a whopping 40%, and that it will reduce its capital expenditure to between $9 million and $11 billion annually. The major announcement was made on Thursday as the company also revealed a loss of $16.8 billion for the second quarter of 2020 and slashed its dividend payment by 50% for the first since the Deep Horizon disaster in the Gulf of Mexico. But what does that mean for Trinidad and Tobago? Well, according to BPT&T's Vice President Corporate Operations, Giselle Thomas, the company remains committed to its operations in Trinidad and Tobago, including maintaining its 2 billion stranded cubic feet of natural gas per day, which it produces and for which it's contractual arrangements. There will be job losses as organization intends to shed 10,000 employees globally, with the only people ringing fence are those directly involved in the operations. How many will lose their jobs in Trinidad and Tobago? Thomas could not give a number, as all of that will be worked out by the end of 2020. And finally, Brazil's Supreme Court has ruled that President Jair Bolsonaro's government must adopt measures to stop the spread of novel coronavirus to the country's vulnerable indigenous communities. A majority of the justices voted to give the government 30 days to draw up a plan to reduce the threat to indigenous people from COVID-19, which could wipe out some tribes. Measures should include sanitary barriers to stop outsiders entering protected tribal lands and the isolation of invaders, but the court stopped short of ordering the immediate expulsion of illegal loggers and miners that indigenous leaders say are spreading the virus. The action was sought by Brazil's main indigenous umbrella organization, APIB, backed by 6 opposition political parties that have criticized Bolsonaro for denying the gravity of the second worst coronavirus outbreak outside the United States. According to APIB, 631 indigenous people have died from COVID-19 and 22,325 cases have been confirmed among Brazil's 850,000 indigenous people. Half of Brazil's 300 indigenous tribes have confirmed the infections. The pandemic endangers indigenous communities with no access to health care in remote parts of the Amazon and whose communal living under large dwellings make social distancing impossible. Tribes face the loss of cultural traditions with the death of their elders stricken by the virus. And that is it for our region news this evening, and I continue to urge our viewers to stay indoors, wear those masks, and use those hand sanitizers. Back to you, Wendell.